All right, good morning, everybody. Wall Street Jesus, the Saturday Sweep Series open to everybody today. So I got to keep reminding myself that this is not just members we're talking with, because a lot of times when we open it up, I forget that we have some non-members on here, and I'll talk about stuff that we, might have looked at in the room together or discussed, and if they're not in the room, they have no clue what the hell I'm talking about. But regardless, welcome everybody. All right. And those of you who are new, we do this every Saturday. We open it up to everybody, non-members, once a month. Okay. And the focus is not just to recap some of the stuff we saw the prior week, but try to come up with some sort of game plan, an outlook, something to keep an eye on, clues, putting together, collaborating the clues we saw the prior week and what that may tell us for coming days and weeks. So we do this every Saturday, and the key components of what we're looking at, okay, again, it's what I look at and what I like to introduce to a lot of you traders out there, because if you're finding any sort of success and you're not using or trying to utilize these tools, I think it could only make you that much better of a player trader in this game. Okay. So regardless of the style or whatever concoction you come up with your setups and entries and exits, I think sentiment and sweeper activity can be an extremely deadly combo in addition to what you do. And if you're having difficulty out there finding consistency, I think you should strongly consider looking at this, baby steps in a nice and easy way. But again, you got to be disciplined. If you're going to still do the things that have cost you money in the past and continuously do them, no matter what you may come across in this game, you could come across a freaking crystal ball right in front of you. And if you continue to do the things that cost you money in the past over and over and over, you're going to have a tough time. All right. So it's trying to focus on the stuff that you have confidence in, the stuff that works. And that's what we try to hammer home each and every day in the steam room. All right. So again, it's aggressive options activity and, as I like to say, retail sentiment. Okay. What the retail trader, investor, how they're positioned in the market at extremes, it's very telling and can be a very powerful tool. Again, at extremes. Okay. The issue is we're not at extremes each and every day, obviously. Okay. So the in between, when we're not at an extreme, as far as sentiment is concerned, that's where you can get in trouble. All right. So we'll go over it. We like to talk about this stuff continuously, especially on the sentiment end, because it's fascinating. Let me get this out of the way early enough because I rush it through at the end and it's kind of useless. If anybody's new, they have any questions on any terminology, any strategy points that we might have mentioned today, you go to wallstreetjesus.com, WALLST, not street, the word, stjesus.com, and you go to the strategy section right here on the top. All right. And they're quick, easy to read blogs. And from the basics, what are sweepers? Why are they important, in my opinion? To how I've seen people utilize this intel and make money in this game. All right. Again, they're easy to read. You can breeze through this in while you're sitting on the couch. Okay, all these things. Also, if you have an interest in taking a peek in what we do, we offer a 3-day trial, no credit card, so no obligation. You don't have to cancel. 3 days. Again, you're just going to get a general idea of what we're looking at on a day-to-day basis. All right. You're not going to figure out if it works or anything in a matter of 3 days, but you'll get an idea of what we're looking for. Okay, and then it's 50% off the first month. That's the whole entire premium package with private Twitter included. Okay, so you're going to get private Twitter included in that premium package. You get access to this room and private Twitter. If you're interested in just private Twitter, right, you don't have the time to be in the room, you're always on the run, on the go, blah, blah, blah. We've spun off and we offer private Twitter in its own entity. You go to products and private Twitter feed right there. You put in your handle, and that's $59.99 a month, and you'll get the whole private Twitter. Private Twitter feed is all the real-time flow with some commentary, some sentiment charts, open interest updates in the morning, post-market updates at the close of the day. The biggest difference between the room and private Twitter, for obvious reasons, the traders that are in the room trading off of the variety of tools out there, and I'm on audio video every day, talking about the flow as it comes in, what I'm looking to trade, what I'm looking to swing, what I think is just a day trade and stuff like that. All right, so that's the biggest obvious difference. All right, so let's dive into the juicy stuff here. Okay, and let's just go quick to the market. Oops, soy. All right, and basically, if you heard what I mentioned at the very beginning here when we started this webinar of what we like to accomplish on these webinars, not only recapping, everybody loves to talk about the names that caught action. That's great, but it's not really a difference maker when it comes to looking at this information. Okay, what I found in my career is interpreting what the flow and sentiment might be signaling to us, and then having that outlook, and a lot of people use this in a bad way, but that bias. Okay, I don't think a bias is necessarily a bad thing. Okay, when you're looking at information like this and keeping an open mind to what you may see. Right, a bias is it can work in a very negative way when you're like, well, Trump is going to eventually get impeached, so I'm shorting everything. I don't care what the price action shows me. That's where a bias can destroy you. Okay, but I like to form a bias, and I'll give you an example of what we were looking at last Saturday into the week that just passed. Okay, we've obviously had a nice rally off the lows. Okay, and each and every time, and this is totally normal, when a market stretches like this, okay, you're going to get some excitement out of the bulls. Okay, and that's what sentiment shows us. When we look out at our sentiment indicators, okay, we're not looking at surveys, right? It's not a survey asking around whether you're bullish or bearish. What it's showing us is that the retail money is getting sloppy on the call side or the put side, depending on which end of the spectrum they're on. Okay, so when our short-term indicators are signaling to us a bullish extreme, in simple English, that means that there's a lot of emotion involved on the retail side. Okay, as far as their call buying, they're chasing, they're getting robbed on the premium end, right? They're just buying anything they could get their hands on because they think the market's never going to come down again. And it's always the case. When the market is up strong, retail never thinks the market's going to pull back again. And when the market pulls back hard, retail thinks the market's never going to come back again. And no matter how many times they see it come back, right? And no matter how many times they see a rally pull back or consolidate, their emotions get the best of them, and they continue to do the same things over and over and over again. Okay, and that's where the edge in evaluating sentiment comes into play, in my opinion. Okay, especially when you're in a bull market and you get these pullbacks that really bring out some fear in these retail players. All right, and we'll see them, scramble to buy puts, not only betting on a direction, speculating on more downside, looking for protection, and it always starts that way. What happens is retail players, they put on protection when a pullback looks a little like a pullback maybe starting, and as that pullback starts to materialize, they get greedy. Now, it's not only about protecting their longs, now they want to profit, right? They can't sit and be patient and wait for that pullback to set up another long entry. They can't resist. They need to profit now off that downside. And that usually in bull markets is right near a bottom. Okay, so that's what we're looking for. And like I said, so we had this rally here, which was pretty strong, okay, and that showed us a little bit of exuberance on the short-term scale, okay. A pullback would have been totally normal, some consolidation, whatever the case. We got that, and if we were starting to see on Saturday, last Saturday webinar, we were starting to see the signs of fear and retail looking to take advantage of further downside come into play. Okay, so that told us going into the week last week, weakness, we got to look at weakness as an opportunity to get long. Okay, and then we look at the flow, right? Then we want to see the smart money get aggressive and start having a risk appetite on their speculative plays via sweeps, options, etc. All right, so that's how we would like to set it up. That's the ideal setup coming out of a Saturday webinar in either direction. All right, so going into last week, we had retail getting a little bared up. There were a lot of indicators were there already, some of them really close, and that told us any further weakness, we got to really keep an eye on flow, see what they're buying. We like a name off a pullback, whatever the case may be, off a little breather, we should look for some long entries. Okay, that was heading into this prior week that just passed, and the market as a whole, nice bounce. A lot of names bounced with it. There was some decent movement around. It was a pretty solid week for us long players, as many of you know. Okay, and just to go back on that point, and I think this is what the point MJ was making earlier. This is where you really got to figure out what you're going to do in this period here. Okay, because I think a lot of people, especially when they're looking at sentiment and flow, they could take advantage of this. They have no problem taking advantage of this. It's waiting for this. What do you do while this is setting up? All right, that's where I think you as a player in this game, okay, and I hate to use the word trader because I think it almost forces you to try to be like a Jesse Livermore, a Paul Tudor Jones, and come in every day and trade something every day. You might not be wired to do that. I'm not. I'm playing the game 20 plus years. I'm not. And I think that's why I'm still around, because I admitted that early on to myself. So you got to figure out what the hell you're doing in this. If you think you're a good enough trader to take advantage of maybe potential downside here, or finding needles in a haystack while a market consolidates or pull back on the long side, if you think you're good enough of a trader to do that, the more to you. And you're going to learn one way or the other whether you're correct on that evaluation, right? You're going to make money consistently doing it, or you're going to say, listen, I continue to get beat up in these breathers and consolidations, not worth it. All right, so you got to figure out something to do to allow and wait for that better setup to come about. All right, a lot of guys I know day trade, primarily day trade in this type of period. Okay. Some swing traders, position traders I know will look for some longer term stuff to buy on dips. You know, some stuff that's already been beat up and they're looking to build a position piece into a position with time. So that's what they'll look to do while waiting for a better tactical setup. But you have to figure out something here. All right. Because if you're going to treat this period here like you treat this period here, you're spinning your wheels. That means you're coming into the game every single day and trading the same exact way, no matter what sentiment, flow, or whatever the hell's going on. And think of it logically. You're not going to find success doing that. That's just logic. You're lying to yourself if you think you will. All right, so you may be looking at sentiment, but you're actually not taking advantage of it, right? If you're trading off extreme bullish sentiment the same way you're trading off extreme bearish sentiment. So these are the stuff, you know, you need to focus on and you need to work on, again, to get better at this game. All right, so that was the setup coming into last week. Okay, any further weakness, again, we didn't know the market was going to bounce, you know, right here, for example, but any further weakness we would have looked at as an opportunity to get long. All right, so where are we this week? This week we had a nice little move. Okay, there was some decent movers this week. The flow really started to wake up this week. I think that's what I got excited the most about. In other words, in simple English, what we were seeing throughout this poll, even throughout the summer, guys, and the summer has a lot to do with it. You had earnings season, blah, 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 blah. Okay. But what we were seeing, we were only seeing one type of buying, really, one type of real buying. And that was names that have been decimated, okay, for whatever reason, casino stocks, crap like that. We have seen buying out into next year in some decent size, okay, in those particular names. That's the only real action we were seeing. What we were missing, and is a big component of when we get excited, when we see some good looking flow, that aggressive shorter term spec type action. Okay, so I'll give you an example. Somebody can aggressively build a position in, let's say, again, I'm just using a name off the top of my head, Campbell Soup, November calls, way out there. Okay, he's aggressively buying them, but he's buying them with time because the stock is in the midst of a pretty severe pullback, a lot of selling, and the player feels he needs as much time as possible. He's not trying to nail a bottom. He understands he's going to be early, but it's real buying, right? The problem with that is you may not, you know, he's even telling you himself, he may not see any reaction for a couple months there. All right, so that's what I'm explaining to you, what we were seeing the whole summer, as opposed to the action we started to see come in last week. I'm going to take one example, ATVI. Okay, ATVI has seen flow, right? We know that. ATVI, they've been buying dips continuously. But what was different last week, they came in extremely aggressive, started buying up those September 75s. Okay, you don't need to know the definition of aggressive options activity or sweeper activity. If you were in the room watching the flow come in and me talking about it, it was pretty obvious that there was an aggressive player or group buying those September calls, right? A lot of us played it for that reason. We day traded it successfully. Quite a few that I know of you probably on this webinar held it an extra day, got lucky, right? So that, in my opinion, that's the flow you really want to trade off of. Okay, the other stuff is, you know, position building in a sense. All right, but we're starting to see that type of flow come back into the marketplace. And that's important too, because think of it logically, it's risk appetite. Okay? Somebody's buying September 75 calls in ATVI, not because they're making a bet on the name. If they were doing that, they'd go out like we're seeing in some of the other names, right? Out in January, December at the least. They wouldn't go out a week. They're aggressively speculating on something. News, rumor, chatter, upgrade. Maybe just momentum coming into the name. What was interesting about the ATVI action, they weren't buying EA or Take-Two, right? It wasn't like they were buying the group like they usually do. It was just ATVI. That was pretty telling. All right, so that's, I think, what's got me feeling most excited right now is that type of actions finally coming back in. Because I'm being honest with you, the whole summer, you could count on one hand type of activity like that. Okay, for whatever reason. You know, it could be just simple reason it was summertime and you know, things are slower. All right, so that I think bodes well as we go into next week. Okay, and we'll dive into the sentiment part of things now to show you where we are as far as sentiment is concerned and how that may play in. This is, oh shoot, hold on, I gotta post it. There was one chart, one indicator, the equity put to call that had me a little concerned that we may need a breather, but Friday softened that a bit, so that's a good sign. Let me post it on here, so I forgot to put it on there. Oops. All right. And I'll put the equity put the call too. All right, so you guys could take a glance at that while I grab the equity, put the call, put it on there quick. All right, so here's the, again, I got to remember that not everybody's in the room because I know most of you in the room know this, okay? So here's basically where a lot of us fit in and look at pretty religiously, okay? Short-term retail sentiment stuff, all right? So this is the extreme short-term, and a lot of us like to trade off that, okay? In other words, what I mean by short-term, these things can move in days, sometimes intraday, depending on the move. All right. So the squeezometer, a lot of you guys know the odometer, right? That's an intraday indicator, moves intraday. These other two are end of the day. These two are the same exact thing. One just has a bigger weighting in NASDAQ names. All right. So we ended the week neutral, as you could see, on all three of these. So that's pretty good. Going into Friday, they were above neutral, just so you get an idea of where they were. Okay, so they were above neutral off the rally, and a little softening on Friday. I don't even remember what the hell the market did. Not that it matters, but these things came back down to neutral, regardless of what the market did. All right, so that's going into early next week. So we look good there. Okay, again, no signal. There's nothing there. No extreme. That's what we're concerned with. That's all we're looking for. So there's nothing to really pay attention to there. Okay. Once I know where these are a lot of secondary indicators I like to take a look at. Some of them are more intermediate term than shorter term. You know, a lot of these, I post them on Twitter. All right. The total put the call, again, pretty basic, right? You've heard me make the comment, the put the calls for those of you who are not in the room, you should always know where the put the calls are. You're nuts if you don't. You should always know where the equity put the call is. And by the way, the spike in the equity put the call I'll show you, which a lot of you guys, if you're paying attention to, members or not, pretty much marked the recent lows on this pullback. I think the reading was 0.7 or something like that, right? On the equity put the call. Didn't we have a 7 handle? All right, and pretty much marked the lows. All right, so whether you're in the room or not, put the calls you can find anywhere. You should always have an idea of where they are as you come in the morning and trade. Again, options oscillator, neutral, short-term VIX, call buying, VXN buying, neutral, pretty much everything neutral here. Fear, greed, that was hot at the highs. Now above neutral, okay, out of the caution zone. AIM, that's the advisor investor model. A lot of you guys probably heard of it. That's more of a longer term indicator. Marked the lows back in February. If you remember, we were looking at it. Neutral. Daily sentiment index, that was a bit hot at the highs there. Back down to a more normal territory. I like to look at the fund flows, money coming out of funds, gives you a pretty good idea of where sentiment's at. That's leaning bullish. We'll get into this bad boy here. Because again, you don't get readings too often on this hedge fund indicator, but we'll take a look at that. Tweeps, that's Twitter, social media. That was bearish going into Friday, meaning they were a little too bullish. I haven't seen the update yet off of Friday's market action. And this is a weekly, another one I like. This didn't update yet, weekly retail put buying. This had a nice signal last Saturday, meaning retail the indicator was showing retail buying puts. So that was a good sign. All right. I want to talk about the hedge fund thing before we forget, because we've been talking about it for a couple of weeks. Okay. And then we can get into a little more of the sentiment stuff here. But also one thing, hold on, before I forget. And then I'll take your questions. Hang on. All right, and this is where I just want to show you guys, because a lot of you guys ask me about it, just in case I croak and you want to look at something. Just again, the simple put the calls and how they can be an asset. Okay. Any of this stuff, if you're looking for exact buy sell signals out of any tool in this market, you're going to be misled. You're not going to get the full value that some of the good stuff can offer. All right. This is the NASDAQ equity put the call versus the Qs. Okay. The Qs are the bars. If you can make that out, the NASDAQ's the yellow line. The chart's awful. I apologize, but hopefully you can make that out. All right. So again, simple logic, right? Put the call, easy to remember. Spikes show a spike in put buying, aka contrarian way, that would be bullish, and a low put the call would mean a little too much call buying. That means traders are bullish and looking at it contrarian way, you would be cautious. All right. Again, just the simple aspect of it, the spike and a lower move out of the indicator, and I'm going to show you how it translates into how it can be used in price action. Okay. Pretty obvious spike up here, right in the put the call, comes with price action to the downside, no coincidence, marks a low. Okay, boom, 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 boom. Next spikes come around here again, right? Makes sense. Market a little bit of a pullback. Trump getting impeached. This guy doing that. This guy did this. Mueller, blah, blah, blah. Tariffs. The world's coming to an end. That's what everybody's talking about over here. And whoop. All right, same exact thing. Okay. And you can see too, a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times at peaks, you'll see, the put the call wash itself out and come down to a lower range. Okay. But never, you don't get we got one caution signal on a low put the call over the last, I want to say year, but at least 6 months. Is that nuts? You could thank the Donald for that. Okay. So in other words, one reading where traders were too bullish in the equity put the call. One. All right. So here, again, just a low put the call, but that doesn't really signal anything anyway. The market topped out. Here's where I got a little concerned. Okay. And you can see, right? Just logically, you see where the lows are here on this put the call. Okay, where a market tops out and so forth. This is a little out of the ordinary, right? We had a low reading there. We were in the low fives on the equity put the call there. So that got me a little cautious, just that we may get a sentiment flush from here. Okay, that's what we were talking about in the room a little. And we didn't get much, right? A little bit of a pause, little flush, and kept them honest. All right, so I would advise the lower end of this, unless you see some really low readings, and you're going to hear a lot of people talking about it if you do, I would just take those as cautionary signs in the bull market. I wouldn't try to buy puts off of them and get cute and clever. Okay, there's enough money to be made in a gazillion other things. All right, I wouldn't use this for that, but maybe as a signal, take some profits off the table, shorter term stuff if you have them, that kind of thing. All right, on these low readings. But this is the stuff to pay attention to in bull markets. When you get these spikes, the higher the better. Usually come pretty much near the lows. Okay, usually, for the most part. All right, so that's how how I use it, and a lot of us use it in the room, just a simple put the call. All right, and the put the call can be looked at intraday too. Like some of these spikes and stuff like that, you may not see at the end of the day because it happened at 12 o'clock, right? Let's say, for example, this happened at noon, but didn't close there. It closed down here. If you're looking at the close, the put the call, you're only going to see this level. So we look at intraday for day trading purposes as well. It can be used. All right, but again, that's just the simplest way in looking at this stuff and how it can be efficient and help you. Oops. Look how I get lost. You see me get lost here? Okay. All right, so that's that. Let's talk about the hedge funding, okay? Because that was been the topic of conversation in the room for a couple of weeks now. In simple English, what this indicator is showing us, telling us, is that hedge funds have no exposure to the market, or I should say lack exposure to stocks, okay? And this thing moves like every other indicator. When they have a lot of exposure, we're going to get a bearish signal. And when they lack exposure, could be even net short, you get a bullish signal. All right. And in my experience, since I've been looking at it, what happens is you get, when the market starts to move in the other direction, okay, now, again, logically, what do hedge funds have to do? If they lack exposure to the market and the market starts to run away from them, in a sense, it's not like you and I. They can't just sit and do nothing. They can't just sit and say, oh, I guess I missed this rally. I'm just going to tell my clients that. They'll be cool with it. It doesn't work that way. Anybody who manages money knows exactly what I'm talking about. You have to take part in that. Even if you are wrong, you're better off being wrong with everybody else. Because if you miss that rally, those clients will not be clients anymore. Okay? So you've got to have some exposure when the market starts to move against you. And that's what you see a lot of hedge fund not outperformance, but underperformance out there, right? Because they, obviously they're very market savvy people, intelligent guys managing money. They think this market's overvalued and has topped out. So what do? They're taking risk off the table. They're not putting on more risk. And what's the market doing? The market's going in the other direction. Okay? So that's what we were talking about for a couple of weeks now. And that shift from them being at a point of no exposure to them having a decent amount of exposure hasn't showed up yet. That's the most important thing to take away from what I'm telling you here. They still, to this day, today, lack exposure to equities. Okay. The last time I remember that I saw something like that, okay, where it wasn't a market pullback. This is another thing we were talking about, if you remember. Usually we see that here, market pullbacks. And then what happens is, the market starts to bounce and rebound, and they got to get back all in. And that's where you get these ferocious rallies, right? So the last time I seen that and the market didn't pull back, let me get this off, was where? This blow off in January. That's the last time they got cute and tried to time the market and were wrong. That was the last time. So what happened was they were taking chips off the table in November, December, okay? And to the end of the year, hedge funds were selling. And again, you'll see it in the price action, guys. For all you guys out there who say only price pays, okay, you'll see it in the price action. These guys move around a lot of money. All these mock sells at the end of the day, all these fades we're seeing of gap ups or into the bell, that's because these guys have been doing nothing but selling into this rally. All right. And the last time they did that was here. Okay. And if I remember correctly, we were seeing the same thing. Market really couldn't make much ground up, right? Every time it rallied, they'd sell it off. And you can see it here, pop, sell off, pop, sell off. And then what happened is the market started to get away from them. And this happened. Okay. And that hedge fund indicator, right? Let's say look like this. All right. So here's full exposure, let's say. Look at this. I'm like Madden. Look at me go. Full exposure on the top, no exposure here on the bottom, let's say, right? Here's the lines. Here's the indicator. And they were down here, no exposure here. As this market took off, this is what they had to do. Whoop! And you know where this hedge fund line topped out? Take a guess. So they were all out of stocks. They got all in and then some, and then poof, so all you bears out there, you may ultimately be right. Maybe we get what Paul Tudor Jones is calling for, by the way, that blow off rally and then a kaboom possible. Okay. But that's what we're keeping an eye on off that indicator right now. And again, has, for me, and I try to keep members on the same page keeps me bullish even when the market looks like shit. Because here's the logic, okay? Can hedge funds be right? I guess so, right? They're smart guys, even though they've been worse than retail in recent years, okay? Can they be right? Can they catch a big drawdown here and not get caught long and be short? Can all of these guys have outsmarted the market? They would need an exogenous event, probably. That's the shot. They would need something to blow up. And I still think it would just be a blow up. And then they're all in cash already. They would probably come back into the market at that point anyway. You understand? They're all out. They're all out. As a matter of fact, last week, they were selling even more. I don't know how much more they have to sell. Can't be much. So they're all out. All right. So things to keep an eye on. If you guys remember, we were talking about this even during the week, the webinar that we everybody's on. We will see when they come in for exposure. We will see it in the flow, no doubt about it. There's not a doubt in my mind. I promise you, we will see it in the flow. And how you're going to see it in the flow, we saw bits and pieces of it already. That scramble, that machine gun, Uzi, rapid fire type sweeper activity. And it's going to likely come in a lot of hot names that they need to show, that they need to be long of, that they need exposure in. We already are seeing it in AMD, for crying out loud. Right? So you guys know the action in AMD? We would see that in several other names. That's how we know that that indicator is on the verge of going like that to that. Okay? And where we want to be a part of, we want to get in the middle of this, right? That's a lot of juice. That's a lot of momentum there. Because this is the tricky part with that indicator. Anytime you get them taking off exposure, right? Like I just showed you, that weighs on the markets a lot of times. That weighs on the markets. Again, they got big money. Their selling makes a dent. So it weighs on the market over the short term. The beauty of this market, it hasn't weighed much, right? I mean, we're freaking a burp away from new highs here. So that's the difference. But usually when this indicator is going down like that, like it has, it usually translates into some weakness in the market. It hasn't translated into much here. But on the flip side, when that indicator turns and they start scrambling to put on exposure, because that's what they do, they scramble back in all the way to the other side. That push is ridiculous. The amount of juice and momentum off that push is insanity. Again, you want an example of it. If you don't remember the January blow-off, it looks like that. Right? Those of you in the room, private Twitter, you know the AMD flow. Right? We've been seeing up until now how stupidity. I mean, that's why it's stupidity. Stupidity. That's what it would look like. All right. And even, yeah. So how about this? Somewhere I just saw somebody, I see you guys asking a lot of questions. I apologize. I didn't even have this up. Save your questions till I finish mumbling here. But I saw somebody just mention Tepper. Even Tepper, right? Even Tepper took down his exposure. Is that right? We heard it right out of his mouth. And what did he say? The same thing. He's been wrong. He's been wrong. This market's moving against him. But you heard what he said? I don't know if you guys caught him. He said one thing at the end that I heard that said, oh man, I can flip like this. I can flip the script like this, he said, if I need to. And then I forgot, whatever his name was doing the interview. He's like, what would take it? Maybe a tariff deal or something to that effect. He said most likely something with tariffs would make me flip the script. What do you think when these guys flip the script is going to happen? All right, so that's what we have to pay attention to. Now, listen, you're probably saying going against Temper is not a smart bet. No, it's never a smart bet, but you got to understand it's extremes we're talking about. Any retail trader can be right. We're not looking to go against any one trader unless it's, what's his face, Gartman, right? We're talking about the whole bull wax. The sentiment is important when everybody's on one side of the ship. When everybody's on one side of the boat. And that's what we're seeing right now in that indicator. All right, so something to keep an eye on. And like I said, you will not miss it out of the flow. I promise you. You don't have to worry about that. You will know what names they're tattooing. You will know what names will have the juice, have the momentum. We will know all of that when they start chasing, getting back in. We haven't seen a lot of it. We've seen little signs. Remember, there was one day this week, there was one day the week prior to that, the holiday week, where we saw that scramble come in, and then the market gap to new highs. All right, so we're seeing bits and pieces of it, but we still haven't seen a turn in that indicator. And when that does happen, you're going to see that day after day after day after day. All right, so something to keep an eye on. Anybody have any questions on any of this stuff? What if the Dems lose in November? I'm not a politician. What if Trump loses in November? That's what we heard that? I don't know. The market was supposed to blow up when Trump lost. The hell I care about the Dems. Anybody have any question? Why are tariffs so important in certain names? The thing is again, the smartest minds out there really don't know. So we can't pretend to know. All you got to know is, excuse me, all you got to know is what happens, what goes on when we hear this tariff news. Every time we hear Trump going to slap on these tariffs, he means business, blah, blah, blah. They hit the same names. The algos come out and sell the same names like clockwork. And then we get a positive news. Oh, they're meeting with China. Bullshit news. What do? They squeeze the same names, right? That's all you need to know. Nothing else. That's all you need to know. You try to dive into the fundamentals of the tariffs and what can be, and you're most likely, don't take this as an insult, you're not smart enough to do that. And even if you were, you wouldn't be a trader because it doesn't always translate into making money. So don't waste your time. There's no reason to waste your time. Again, I just gave you the perfect example, okay? Before the election, we were at bearish extreme sentiment. Every every indicator on the face of the earth signaled bearish extreme into that election. And all I heard was, yeah, but if Trump gets elected, this market's going to collapse. And my rebuttal was, so if the market collapses, that'd be good, right? That means everybody's going to make money. Everyone's bearish. Everyone's all in puts. Everyone's been buying protection all the way up to the election. So if Trump gets elected and the market crashes, that would be great for everybody. The whole entire world would be wealthy. Right? Doesn't work that way. Again, the Bitcoin analogy. Jesus, why are you so bearish Bitcoin? Why? Everybody and their mother wants to own Bitcoin. Every piece of riffraff on the face of the earth owns Bitcoin. Are you telling me they're all going to get rich, and Warren Buffett, who they're making fun of, who's calling Bitcoin a sham, is not going to take advantage of the situation? Like, just logic. Kids riding skateboards are going to become multi-billionaires off Bitcoin? Come on now. I mean, come on. And that's the market. Everybody thinks, that's where you see people try to pretend and sound smart when it comes to the economy and blah, 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 blah. And the inverted yield curve, can do this and do that and do this. It doesn't mean shit. If everybody sees that same thing, the market already knows, and there's a very strong possibility the total opposite is going to happen if that comes about. That's just the way the game works. All right. So again, talk to me before the election, the midterm. If everyone's all lathered up in protection because everybody's worrying about Democrats winning the House or whatever the case, impeaching Trump, probably one of the best opportunities to get long in a long time. So ask me then. Anybody have any other question? Yeah, now the VIX is low here. We're talking apples and oranges here. We're not at extreme bearish sentiment. Now is probably a good time to put on some longer term protection if you're a little too long for your liking. I'm not even the VIX, because the VIX is always low. The VIX has been low for ages now. It's just any time the market's at new highs, okay, and you are long and you're looking to take advantage of additional risk on the long side, you got to evaluate and say, listen, all right, you know what? I'm a little too long. God forbid something happens. And protection's dirt cheap. So I'm going to put on a little protection. You don't do that when the market starts to piss. You do that now. You know what I mean? Exactly. We see protection every day. Doesn't mean players are bearish in the flow. It just means that they're being smart. All right. And Paul, that's the thing, Paul. You hit the nail on the head, Paul. Okay. The thing is this, all right? Buying protection and betting on downside is two different things, right? Protecting is one thing. Betting on the market crashing is a whole other thing. And I explained to you how a lot of times, the retail trader will start off with protection and then end up building a position looking for the market to collapse. So protection's always a good thing. I agree 110%. Buy some match calls. Yeah, that probably would have been a good idea. Anybody else? Sentiment indicators, I get them from all over the place. Megan, Sentiment Trader, has a gazillion indicators. If you're into that stuff, like a lot, like too many. But you could get them anywhere. That's a premium site. Put the calls you could get free anywhere. This put the call chart, Megan, is from Thinkorswim. Oop. This one I showed you. Thinkorswim has several put the calls. Okay, so depending on how interested you are in this stuff, again, you don't want to overdo it. Especially initially, you don't want to overdo it. Like I stress to a lot of members, to initially start off paying attention to these three and the equity put the call on a day-to-day basis. And then once you become a little more familiar with how sentiment works, then start to look at all the other stuff. But again, if you're a member of the room, that's what you have me for, is to give you a heads up when I notice that hedge funds lack exposure. You know what I mean? That's what you're a member for. And that's where you're going to learn about these things the most efficient way. So, in other words, just be patient. If you remember, be patient, you'll get a handle on it. But yeah, Megan, if you're interested in sentiment trader, there's a bunch of them. There's a lot of them, especially premium services that offer some sentiment out there. Yeah, Elliot, I think it's so underused. Sentiment's so underused. Like there's one that goes back so long. This daily sentiment, DSI, NDSI. When I got into the business, I remember brokers and advisors looking at that stuff. Like that's you're talking about 20 years ago. Now they got sentiment reading on social media stuff on everything. But like I said, whether you're fascinated by this stuff like me or not, I think at least the basics, right? At least like the put the calls, you should always know where they are at every single day when you turn the computers on. Okay, especially in pullbacks. Every single bottom since I'm playing this game had a high reading on the put the call, an extreme reading. Every single one, every major bottom. Put the call, there's a couple of them. What the hell? The main one is $ PCALL, P call on Thinkorswim. You got to be a client, Bill. You got to be a client of theirs. That's the pain in the ass with that stuff. For their research. I wonder if you could pay for their research or whatever the case. Yeah, you got. So if you type in on Thinkorswim, you could just look at the Thinkorswim. In other words, the symbol lookup or whatever. If you type in put the call, you'll see all of them. They got it on the Dow, on the Russell, on the NASDAQ, on all of them. On all of them. Yeah, MJ, sentiment trader, that's everything, right? Like even Trade Alert, people will say it's too much information. There's a lot of indicators on sentiment trader. I love all that stuff, but you make a good point. Sometimes it's overwhelming. Yes, Market Chameleon, I go on all the time, Valerie. All the time. That's a great site, Market Chameleon. I subscribe to them too. I have a subscription to everything. Some stuff, I just realized a couple things I was a subscriber to. I forgot I even was. I'm paying for this stuff and I don't even know I was a subscriber. But yeah, a lot of any of this stuff is useful. Again, if you're looking for buy, sell signals that are going to work to a T, and that's what a lot of retail money's looking for, you're just not gonna see the value in this stuff. Like Market Chameleon is great. Market Chameleon, Valerie, talk to MJ. MJ is a master of it. She loves that site. I don't know if I could connect you to MJ. MJ could tell you exactly what she looks for on Market Chameleon. So if you could track down MJ, she'll help you out in a big way. Yeah, Market Chameleon's got a lot of info. Oh, all right. So Valerie's in the room, MJ. Poo-poo-net. I didn't know that, Valerie. Yeah, MJ said to DM her. If you DM her in the room, she'll. So yeah, there's again Market Chameleon, sentiment trader. There's a lot of stuff if you're interested in that sort of thing. But again, I stress to start off with the basics. All right, and that's what we focus on in the room there. All right, so let's go into. I'm sure I missed some questions. If they're important, throw them back out there again. Let's go into some of the flow, right? Because again, sentiment's great. I like to see the flow, especially show that risk appetite. Because then I get a little cautious when they're not putting on risk, when they're not playing aggressively. So it makes me feel a lot better. Here's some of Friday's top action. This TSG up at the top, is a stock that is in that gambling sector. Okay. A lot of names in there that have seen flow, especially longer term flow, have been battered. They haven't shown anything of a resemblance of a bounce yet. This TSG is in that group. They make, if I'm not mistaken, video poker machines. Okay. Super aggressive activity on Friday. Thursday, there was good looking Jan sweeper activity. Okay, so that's back-to-back days on this TSG. What I did see now, which could be one of the catalysts here, here's the daily. So you can see, whoop, South got beat up pretty good. But again, look at the runs, right? All these things. Look at the runs in these things. Got beat up pretty good. Thursday, good-looking Jan sweepers. And then Friday morning, they started up in this thing. This thing was strong all day Friday. They hit up several different strikes too. Look at this thing. Okay, that's a 5-minute. Really strong. All right, here's the action, some of the action I pulled to show you guys. September 25s, October 25s. Here's some more Octobers. Several strikes if you go look at the volume. And I like a bunch of things also. Look, this was more spec, right? A little cheaper. They're going for the gusto there. They laid some nice wood here. Nice wood, right? Swept multiple exchanges. It's going to open top open interest position. A lot of positive stuff out of the flow Thursday and Friday. Here's what I found off that Seeking Alpha thing right here. Hold on. Right down here. Can you guys see that? Let's see. Right down here. TSG is expected to file its business acquisition report with respect to the acquisition of Sky Betting and Gaming. The bar will include Sky Betting and Gaming's audited financial statements. So this could be something that they're looking to play into next week. They're expecting something positive out of that. Is there a date on this? Let's see, the Star Group hosting conference call. September 17th. When is that? What day is that? Oops. Monday. And what time did it say there again? 8:30 a.m. So Monday morning. So yeah, we'll see. Yeah, it's probably, if there's good news out of that, it'll probably even pop further. But if there's not and there's weakness and they show up again, you got another re-entry there. But really aggressive activity there. What else we got from Friday? Then you got UNP. These things have been strong as hell. UNP, NSC, Nancy, Sam, Charlie, that saw flow again last week. These rails have been fired. KSU also has seen flow a couple weeks back. Look at this UNP. You got a niner there on the top. Had a niner here too. There's been a straight run from July. So that's the only issue with it. Kind of got away here. And this is repeat activity. NSC, you can see similar of a move. Busted through a couple niners. Strong, man. CSX has been chilling a bit. Had a niner there, chilled out. I don't know if the rest of them go, might breathe a little bit and then go. KSU. KSU, if you get a that NAFTA thing settled, could see a nice pop out of that. There's been some flow throughout this whole rally. So all of them have been strong. But that UNP bet came on Friday. You can see sweep, multiple exchanges, October 5th, 160s. VMware, another name Friday ridiculous action. And caught action earlier in the week. I think Wednesday, Thursday, caught a real good looking sweeper. Made my top best list for that day, I remember, VMW. This thing exploded, and they were chasing strength in this thing. Look at that. So, yeah, you had a buyer here, a good looking sweep into this bar here. That was Wednesday. And then an eruption. Wow. Strong. Nice niner there. You bought a little VMW, Maria? Yeah, that looks good. Up here, Valerie, a little too late. See, here's the thing. I try to stress with you guys, and it's more for me, Valerie, than I think I mentioned this to you in the room, but it's more of a preference thing for me. A lot of other people are not as picky, I guess you could say, and have success. For me, like when I see that VMW sweep here, okay, into this bar, that was the setup for me. That was perfect because I want to buy these things before they do this. You understand? You know, but it's always easier. It's easier for us to buy when they look like this. When they just keep pushing highs throughout the day and they see more flow. But for me, I've had the most success buying when it's the hardest time to buy. And this wasn't even a pullback. This is consolidation. Okay. So that sweeper on Wednesday gave us a heads up that this thing may be time for it to bust out of this consolidation. And lo and behold, 2 days later, boom, they come with more flow and explosion. So I'm not a big fan of chasing this, but it depends on what you're looking for. A lot of we see them every day in the room. People will hop on intraday Friday, ride it into early next week and dump it, So depending on what you're looking for out of the name. But if you're more of a swing trader position player where you're not looking to be that tactical, you want to buy off that first sweep, that first round of action in consolidation. Yeah, Valerie, you're not expected. That's the thing. You're not expected to pick out the flow to pay attention to. That's what you have me for. Okay? And every day, I do this. See this? Every day at the close, I do this. On audio, video, I'll mention when I see action I like, I don't shut up about it. All right. And even like just quick write-ups in the middle of the day, where I say, oh, action slows down here. Top bets on the day are VMW, TSG. So I'll write it in a post throughout the day. Okay, so you don't miss any of the top action. Now, you may see other action in names you like. That's a different story, right? There are several, as you see, again, in the room, several people that trade off the flow in names they like. They don't care if I like the action or not because they're using, let's say, technicals or something else in addition with the flow. But for just the flow, that's my job. My job is to tell you what the best action is, what's the cleanest action, what's the most aggressive activity, what's the real action out there. And then it's your job to determine whether, you're willing to pull the trigger or not. What else we got here? Oh, here's another one. Unusual sweeper early on, literally right at the open, if I remember correctly, 940 OI. Now, I'm sure the options weren't as liquid in this thing. Look at that move. See, and you could see now the real action. They're you know what I mean? They're getting life. They're creating nice momentum. That's a good thing when you start to see that. This thing just exploded. This is a daily. Owen, Illinois. And if you look at intraday, this thing just took off early morning. Look at this. Bink, 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 right off and gone. and just grinded the rest of the day. So this thing had a nice run, closed at the highs, and again, the sweep was for, what do we say? November. And it was pretty decent size for that name. More of an unusual sweep than anything else. The cruise lines, again, here's an example, okay? And I want to hit this point so you guys get an idea of what I'm talking about here, okay? RCL, if you remember, okay, for all of you who are looking at names that have been bloodied up and are catching long-term flow right now, this RCL couldn't find a bid for the life of it because of tariffs, okay? China slowing, blah, 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 heard everything. Look at this. Nines, couldn't find bounces, nowhere, okay? Straight down. Every little rally sold off. Okay, what happened then down here, if you remember, there was some decent sized buying, but with time behind it. Okay, so they started to step up their game on the buy side, but again, they understood they may be early. They bought it out. I think it was actually into next year, might have been December, might have been. All right. And, the same thing. Rallies failed. You lose track of it, right? You stop looking at it. Unless you made a play on it and left it alone because you have time, you would have forgotten about this. Okay. And then the in-between catching smaller action here and there, and then they finally came after it aggressively again this past week. They hit this up, the CCL up, not just Friday, early in the week. And now look at this. Now this thing's a spit away from highs. Can you believe it? Look at this U-turn. $3 million bet for December, Paul saying, on RCL down here. 3 million. Okay. But again, what happens is, and this is just how we're wired. Okay. When we see rallies fail, and we get the impression that the name is tough to own, tough to trade, we lose interest. But if you're that type of player that you're looking to take advantage of blood with time, hell yeah, it's worth it. Trust me, it's worth it. Okay, there was a whole retail sector worth it. The problem is having the patience and ignoring the day-to-day nonsense. In other words, if you're buying December calls in RCL in June, you shouldn't be worried about what the stock is doing 3 days later. It means nothing. If anything, you want it to go lower so if you're piecing in, because that's another great strategy, right? When you're buying blood. But again, legitimate name, right? Cruise lines are legit. This is not something that's going away anytime soon. The institutions, they look to take advantage of these pullbacks eventually. And here you go. CCL has been a little more of a laggard, as you can see. But again, real nice move off the lows. Real nice move. Same thing here. Same thing. Had action down here. Was a bit choppy. And then early last week with the RCL, boom. Yeah, good question, Jay. When you play this type of stuff with time, you're looking for a bigger bang for your buck. Okay? You're looking for a bigger bang for your buck. So you're at least looking, in my opinion, for a double on the calls. At least. Because it's not worth trading. You know what I mean? It's not worth trading. If you want to trade, when Microsoft catches some sweeper activity off 2 days of red, that's a trade, right? That's a trade. If CRM, yeah, the usuals, any of this stuff. You know what I mean? Any of this stuff that's not initial activity. But when you're buying blood, that initial activity and it's blood, like SGMS, okay? I'm buying the leaps there, as many of you know, okay? I'm not selling this thing if I'm up 50% on my leaps. It's not worth it. You know, it's not worth it. Well, Gordon's asking what percentage of my account do I use for this stuff? That's another good question. It all depends on you, Gordon. For me, it's a small percentage because I don't swing trade as actively as a lot of you do. You know, I'm primarily day trading, and then I like to swing trade this stuff. You see, I don't really fool around with, you know, the Netflix sweepers for a quick pop, you know, for a swing trade and stuff like that. Unfortunately, it's more of time too. I don't really have the time to, I'll go nuts doing all that. All right. But again, that's a good question and something I think you should look at on your end. It depends on what you want to do. You know, what you're better at. Like, say for me, here's so you get an idea. This is my outlook. Again, the way I look at things. All the short-term stuff I like to day trade. Whatever I make on the day trade side is enough. I know I'm not gonna make any big hits unless I get super lucky on a name. Okay, but that's more of my grind it out. You know what I mean? Daily routine, less risk exposure. Right? I'm keeping tight stop, locking in profits quicker. And then on the side, as a matter of fact, in a separate account, I like to build positions in longer term stuff. ATVI, good. See, Ani, great question. ATVI was a day trade for me. I didn't swing trade it. You know? And one, I really should have, right? I really should have. You know, I really should have. But that's how I look at it. Now, don't get me wrong. Like an ATVI where we see that aggressive action, sometimes I'll swing those, Ani, but for the most part, that's the way I play it. You know, that's the way I play it. Because to sell the quick pop, like I said, the day trading, I'm content with my returns there for that stuff. Well, swing trading meaning you're holding overnight, Valerie. So you got overnight risk. Day trading, I'm out no matter what. You know what I mean? No matter what. So I'll give you an example, okay? Let's say like an ATVI, and by the way, I'm day trading the equity. So that's a whole other different story, right? That's a whole other different story. But let's say, for example, I'll give you an example. ATVI catches that action, right? I see the action come in super aggressive. I buy a chunk of the stock, $76. Okay. I'm looking basically, I say to myself, all right, I'm looking for 50 cents to the upside here. Yeah, depending on how tight I want to be, as far as my stop is concerned, I'm not willing to lose any more than the 50 cents I'm looking for on the upside. Sometimes I'll keep it tighter, 30 cents, all depends. And that's my window. That's my window for day trading. So again, my big windows are coming. I'm not afraid to admit, luck. Sometimes I catch a rumor or right stuff like that, and stuff just explodes. You get lucky. But the other stuff is a grind. I'm not getting rich off the day trade of ATVI, but that outlook, guys, that outlook for me is done. I've been in this game too long. I can tell you from my experience, the big money, okay, is made by building positions and sitting. You understand? Sitting tight. That's where the big money's made. That's also where the risk is as well, right? But that's the high risk, high reward play. You're not looking for that out of your day trades. That's your day trades. You want to keep your stop loss pretty tight. You want to lock in profits. You know what I mean? You don't want to get too greedy. It's a whole different ball game. You can't apply the same logic between the two. Yeah, this ATVI has been money on every dip. Honestly, all the gamers, EA, if you didn't have a lunatic shoot up the Madden event, you probably be in good shape here too. But what are you gonna do? She'll be back. What else? Yeah, Take Two is a maniac too. RCL. So here's the RCL. You had a December call spread. You had some sweepers, some blocks, the whole 9 yards. CCL, by accident, I put the wrong order here. That wasn't the order, but CCL caught action as well on Friday. EW, this name's popped up the last couple days. A couple buyers that I definitely noticed. Ellie Edwards Life Sciences. Doesn't look bad, huh? Caught some buying early in the week, then call spreads, I think Wednesday, and then Friday's action. The best action, my opinion, what do you mean? The best thing we traded was ATVI. MJ, it almost felt like you knew something was going to click there off that flow, the way they were buying it. We haven't seen a scramble like that in a while. EW's medical equipment, interesting. A lot of these medical names. It's not a bad looking stock. Robots too? Oh, robots in general. Yeah. Yep. So EW, I mean, you got a little bit of a lift there. It's up like five. It was up every day last week and had flow all day, every day pretty much. Wait for a little breather there if you're interested. Okay, but looks pretty decent. Let's see. We had a couple more. Oh, this was the Visa. They hit Visa Leaps again. 195s. Huh. This Visa. Is this incredible or what? Wow. Yeah, MasterCard 2 had Leaps. These things have been strong as hell. Really strong. And what else do we got here? Oh, NVS. This caught some action. This is Novartis. There's another pharma name. A couple of these names have been decent. I'm not a big fan of these names, but they've been. I'll tell you one that's been great. Seems like it catches a little action every day. J&J. This is J&J. Yeah, I see you guys mentioning names that caught action last week. There was decent action. LPX, that caught some real nice action. Look at that. I'm going to use the B word, but breaking out. This name, I mean, talk about ignoring flow. We've been talking about it, but I don't think any of us have it. Sony. This thing catches sweeps every day. SNE. Every single day there's a Sony sweep. You own Sony? Oh, LPX. Yeah, that had nice action. This Sony is incredible. Look at this. We were talking about this in the room last week. Without the sweeper activity here, I would never pull up this stock. Even if you told me, Jesus, take a look at Sony, I'd be like, why am I going to look at Sony? Like, come on. Why? And lo and behold, incredible. Yes, FCAU. I own Jans in FCAU. That had some nice action. That looks decent too. Looks like it's trying to find a bottom down there. A lot of nice action. Yeah, WWE. That's MJ stock. God. See? You get lucky on one of these. Like, you see what happens? God forbid you buy one of these with time, right? And you catch one of these, you're good there. You know, you're set. Yeah, PayPal is another beast. I own that once upon a time. It's such a great, right here, right, Paul? Wasn't it right here? when they bought it? Yeah, I think this was it. The lows here. Jesus Christ. See? Again, I don't remember the time of them, depending on what month you own, but I'm giving an example. Like, let's say PayPal, you're buying the blood, even if you're early. Let's say you bought it here early or something, but you bought Jan's. Yeah, you still got a little position in PayPal, Jan's. You're in pretty good shape. Up 20 points. So that's what you're looking for when you don't want to buy blood for a trade. It's unless you're going to be in and out of it really quick, because it can chop you up. There's a lot of selling there. That's why it's blood. Especially now, some of the selling out there, it is so mechanical. Like, it doesn't even look real. I'm being honest with you guys. It doesn't even look real. It almost looks like they let the machines sell off every headline. They get out of the way, and then they come in and buy shit dirt cheap. That's what it looks like. That's what it looks like. Yeah, so what other names did we see last week? Here's some names, a couple names to keep an eye on, especially in the software group too. Hold on. All right, you got this name here. They got an analyst meeting, MB, Mary Boy. Now, again, the action, my job is to tell you the quality action. This is not about the actions, more about the name, okay? Small sweeper activity. They've swept this name before. They've done well in it, okay? But it's small, dollar-wise. Nominal amount was pretty small, okay? But this mind body, decent, half decent spot. You can see it had a little lift here and breathing, so that's perfect, right? That's what you would expect. And they got an analyst meeting next week on the 18th. I'm almost positive. All right, the 18th. And again, this is consolidation. So you're in the right spot. God forbid this ends up turning into one of these software names that we've seen flow in, and you got a nice winner on your hands. Okay. They bought September and December's. So if you're looking for, I think, a bigger move, you should go to December. If you're looking for the quick trade, if you're interested, you could play September's. Okay. I would say maybe wait for more action next week. I don't know if it's capable of that. I don't think it's active enough for that, option wise. So you could, but I can't promise you that they'll be there. LYV, we were talking about this last week in the room because I had no idea. People are telling me they sell tickets, and probably the reason I didn't buy it, honestly. Super aggressive activity in Jan calls for a name like this. They were attacking Jan calls in small lots all day. They had to. LYV, V as in Victor. LYV, Live Nation Entertainment. I thought it was some rap group agency or something. Hip hop group. Owns Ticketmaster. Yeah, that's what somebody was telling me. I guess they're doing something right. Look at this thing. And look, off the action, nothing but up. Bink, 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 new highs. So and the reason I'm telling you, keep an eye, if you can trade some of these names, there's a lot of action like this out there. There's a lot of action. Here's another name that caught some action. MJ, I was looking for you on this name. Mime, M-I-M-E. This is a software name. I think a cloud play. Yeah. So caught an unusual sweeper. No, it's not an IPO. Not an IPO. Caught an unusual sweeper. Nothing huge size-wise, but opens up the largest position of open interest. And again, pullback, consolidation off the highs. Yeah, looks like the rest of them. Looks really good. All right. So again, even if you don't trade these names off it's worth keeping. Like I keep a lot of them on here. I keep a lot of them on my other screen. You know what I mean? So I'm familiar with them. If they ever catch action again or set up, sometimes they'll be at a better spot. There was another name. Oh, this name I actually I sold my Septembers. I have some Aprils. QVC. This is QVC. My wife spends a gazillion dollars on this thing. So me and GJT, we had to make a play on this. It was a no-lose situation. Based on our wives spending, there was no reason not to. In other words, I wouldn't feel bad if I lost money in this thing. Really, MJ? See, it works. And so make a long story short, I bought some Septembers. I sold those. Septembers or Octobers? I don't remember. One or the other. I'm still holding a position in April's. All right. So we'll see what goes on there. But got hot here. I didn't see any news or anything. Maybe a buyout target. Who knows? I have no idea. But really unusual activity. Right, exactly, Ani. If I lost money in QVC, I'd blame her. Anyway, so it was a no-lose situation. No-lose situation. So yeah, that was another name. But all kidding aside, the action there was legit. You know, it was legitimate action. MJ, you still got your SFIX? The cash register is still cashing? Oh, you got out of it? That's okay. I think at some point you gotta lock in a little here or roll or do something. Maria, you still have it? What are you in? You're in October's, Maria, or you're in something else? This is some stock. This has been some stock. Some September, some November. Nice. This has been some stock. Yeah, so again, you know, we want to see eventually this thing maybe chilling out. If it does, it has earnings though. I know that coming up here. Earnings October 1st. So you got a little bit of time. Maria, maybe you ride it up until then, huh? Maybe yeah. You know, you probably have little dips in between, but maybe they'll support it and dump it a couple days before earnings or anything. Nice. What else do we got? I'm trying to think any new names. Anybody else in the room? Any new names? You know, the Roku's, all this stuff, guys. Like we've been saying, you get a down day and you see legit action come into these names. You got to trade there. You know, Roku, CRM, all these things that have caught sweepers galore. I mean, this CRM caught a missile just a week ago. Just a week ago. $1 million Feb, I think it was Feb, right? Feb sweep in CRM. It's incredible. You know, eventually, I guess the music stops. Who knows when? But these things are just incredible. All of them. Let's see. You got some names there. Maria's talking about some of the home builders. Yes. Lennar. If I remember correctly, I think it was the best of it, right, Maria? Lennar, the flow. But I saw some home building flow. Doesn't look that bad. You know, again, this group has been impossible, right? Impossible. Flow, they're early, they're rolling out, they were wrong. You don't want to totally ignore it, especially if they get aggressive here. So Maria brings up a good point. Like a name like Lennar caught legitimate action. You know, you at least want to keep an eye on this name. And the good thing is, this is what I saw. You have earnings coming up. If, let's say, earnings might be bad, right? Maybe that's why the stock is down here. If they sweep into weakness, I think that's a great opportunity. You know, I think it's a great opportunity. So, like I'm saying, the point is keep these names on your radar because when they come back, you lose track of them. They look like this, and then what do? You're chasing this up here now. You know, it's no better feeling you buy, You're buying these things down here, right? And you catch that U-turn and the flow tipped you off to it. Those are the best. Those are the best. THO, yeah, THO, I saw they have earnings. What else was there? Take-Two had, I think Goldman Sachs had, they had an analyst day or something. I didn't hear anything out of it, which is shocking. But Take-Two, goes into the same category. If, let's say we get a pullback again early next week, you see a little buying come in, probably worth at least a trade. And Take-Two, you got a big October ahead in this thing. A lot of hype into October, like the ATVI. EA is November. They pushed it out to November. So you got ATVI and Take-Two, a lot of hype behind those two games. All right, so something to consider. Microsoft, of course. Microsoft is amazing. So that goes in, Jay, that goes into the category with CRM, Roku, all those names, without a doubt. Microsoft is right up there with CRM. Anytime you get a little pullback like this, okay, because anything more than that is just not going to happen. The sweepers are there for any little pull. We just saw them, remember? We just saw them early last week, how aggressive they were. What were they, October 115s they started off with? I think October 115s. Okay, then the very next day they come back, they hit them again, then they start hitting Septembers. Then the next day they're buying more. It's like clockwork. And this is what you get. Okay, this is what you get. So, but here's the issue with these things, Jay, okay? It gets a little tougher as these things continue like this, because this is what you get, this up and down, up and down, up and down, unless maybe we get that blow off hedge fund chase, because they'll definitely chase Microsoft, I promise you, okay? But without that, that's the tricky part. So what happens is, if you buy them late, in other words, let's say you're buying here, up here, and this is not enough for you to take off the table, you get caught in this. And depending on what month you're playing, that can, you're behind the 8 ball. So that's why I recommend waiting for the pull. Maybe it's a day or two, maybe it's a couple days. Even if you're a little bit early, look for sweepers into that pull. And then you want to take profits, in my opinion, at highs, if that makes sense. So that's the trade in these things. Because otherwise, up here, on a risk reward basis, up here, it's really hard for anybody to tell you, all right, Microsoft, initialize a position here at 113 and look for the big enchilada from here over the next 3 months. Is it possible? Of course it is. But the odds of that, not as favorable as a name coming out of consolidation, if that makes sense. But like I said, a lot of you guys traded Microsoft. I know several of you on this webinar who played Microsoft last week and made money. A lot of you guys are tactical enough to play that pullback play. You can play front month, I mean, weeklies, even though some of you do it, you're rolling the dice, but you know what I'm talking about. You can play closer in strikes and trade these things. But that would fall into the category, like I mentioned, CRM, Roku. There's a lot of names like this. I'm drawing blanks now, but a lot of strong names that have sweeper support throughout. Again, until the music stops. What are the names? Yeah, Twilio. I couldn't believe my eyes. I couldn't believe my eyes on this stock. This is ridiculous. Gordon, another stock, this Twilio, okay, that couldn't get out of its own way. I remember day trading this thing, and I hated this stock. Hated it. I'm telling you, I hated this stock. This is just last year. Look, you see the mess down here. You see that mess? Look at all that mess. I remember it like it was yesterday. I was calling them squeeze sweepers because they were looking for a squeeze off the selling. The stock was at lows, getting hammered. And it never would put, a half decent rally together. Always would pop, boom, hit with sellers, pop, sellers. And then now look at this thing. Wow. That's incredible. Incredible. What else? You got, and then you got the names like this, Square, right? Like here, I can't even mention it anymore. I don't know what you do with it up here. Maybe you get a pullback and see sweepers. You can get a quick trade out of it, type of thing. But look, I don't know. I have no opinion. No opinion. This thing, Grub, has been a beast, absolute beast. They're recently buying Leaps. Initially, they bought Leaps and Grub back. Where was that? That was last year, right? So that was somewhere over here, Leaps. And now they bought Leaps again about a week ago. So, this is one of these chase names, Grub. Yeah, Etsy caught a call spread on Friday. That's another chase name. Look at this. NIO, I don't think NIO trades options. What is that, an IPO? I don't know. NIO, I think it's an IPO, isn't it? Yeah, it doesn't trade options. I don't even know of it. If it doesn't catch sweeper activity icon, I probably hardly even know about it. Yeah, once NIO catches sweepers, then I'll have an opinion on it. Yeah, so Maria brings up this Etsy. Yeah, that's in that chase category. Unreal strength. Another name, guys, too, they hammered back here. Hammered it. Do a Twitter search, Wall Street Jesus Etsy, if you're bored. Bombs they set off in this thing. I had no idea what MJ gets a kick out of it. I still ask because I have no idea what they do. Arts and crafts, whatever the hell it is, for this stock to be where it is. What's that, Maria? Chinese Tesla. What's a Chinese Tesla? China Tesla. Oh, the IPO NIO. That's the hype behind it. That's funny. Is that good or bad, though? Is that good or bad these days? Who knows? So yeah, Maria, that's a great stock. Etsy, strong name. What other names? See, you guys have reminded me of a lot of hot names here. The gamers. Lulu, that's another one, right? A lot of strength. Yeah, Sean, SFIX, we talked about it earlier. I don't know if you were around, but yeah, just been a beast. You want to, again, with these names, in my opinion, you want to keep an eye on pullbacks, but I can't get excited here to start a position up here with a high risk reward. I can't do it. If we get that hedge fund chase, we can play around with these things, especially intraday, where there'll be minimal risk, or even flip them. But to build a decent sized position here and go out in time, it's tough for me here. Tough. AMD we spoke a little bit about earlier. What the hell are we going to talk about here, Paul? We spoke about AMD early on. I used it as the example of the hedge fund chase. Here's the first AMD test. Niner. The Niner. Here's the first test of how strong how much strength this rally has left. You got a Niner right here. Does she bust through it, or does she take a little bit of a breather? Tiffany, Maria's looking at. Let's see, Tiffany. Oh, yeah. See, that's nice. right? Big move. You don't want to buy it up here, right? That's what I mean. The risk reward here is poor, and you finally get that pull. So it looks interesting. Definitely looks interesting, that Tiffany. Niner on DeMark on TradingView. DeMark. TD, you can put the initials TD or Tom DeMark. Victor, it's DeMark exhaustion signals. TD sequential. Katos. This is, oh, yeah, I know this name. Katos. Hold on a second. Let me see. I'm almost, oh, it might not be on the board. If I remember correctly, this Katos caught a bull risk reversal with time. Let me see. Yeah, I think it was this 724 November. Yep, that's it. 724. That was at $12. $10. Yeah. Who mentioned that, Katos? King. There was some action in it back in July. They were playing November strikes. I think there was a bullish risk reversal around that time too for November, December. Has moved a little bit off of that, but looks interesting. That's how I remember the symbol. Yeah, you had a little bit of a nice little move here, breathing that out. Looks like it's going to breathe off that. But maybe you're going to pull back. If you're looking to buy it, I would start looking off that pull. I don't know if you can see action in it, though. It's not as active. But you're finally getting a little pull here. What is, there's some other names that are in. I'm trying to think here. We saw airline flow. But anyway, listen, last week, in my opinion, the spec flow, that's where it really started up. This was the first real week of some spec action. MJ, you were asking about the ATVI. What was the most aggressive spec action last week? Because you weren't around. That ATVI, September 75s, they came in and tattooed right over here, MJ. And then it caught, I think it caught upgrades, right? Was that the news that they ended up catching? I don't even remember what news they caught, but I think it was upgrades. You got these software names too, guys. Keep an eye on dips. I like to see action. I like to see action in them, but they all have caught action at some point in time. COUP, COUP. They opened up the largest position of open interest in this down here. She's exploded since. But again, now, for trades on dips, a lot of these things have exploded. They're finally taking notice to the under the radar HDP. MJ, you see this HDP, the software name? I got a buddy of mine who owns a decent sized position in stock, and he owns it for clients too. Down here, he built the position. See, and yeah, exactly, MJ. That's why maybe I take a liking to the consolidation plays, because as a broker, again, back in the good old days, when I had client money, you couldn't chase because you couldn't be that quick, right? You wanted to build a position, and you wanted to give it time, and you wanted to be early. It allowed you to build a position. So maybe that's why it stuck with me for my position/swing trades now, why I have a preference to that. So in other words, like HDP here, they opened up the largest position of open interest. Okay? And, stock is, nobody knows who they are. Stock is choppy, pop, down. We even traded it a couple times. And then all of a sudden now eyeballs are starting to recognize it. Look at this. Complete breakout out of that zone. Complete breakout. Tim's favorite stock, Shamu. Here's another example. I can't believe my eyes. You know how many times I traded this SeaWorld off action? Do you know how many times I traded SeaWorld off sweepers? Those of you in the room know. Felt like I would trade this every day. That's how much action it would catch. And, here, you want to talk about blood? Shamu, I don't know, someone shot him or he left SeaWorld. Something happened. This thing was bleeding to death every day. Shamulus, I'm telling you. And then you close your eyes, you forget about it, and look at it now. And she's still catching action. This thing catches action every day, still. Shamu killed the trainer. See? Shamu killed the trainer. That's what happened? Jesus Christ. But, the moral of the story here. When you're looking to buy blood, this is what they look like. Expect to be early. Try to piece in, or even if you want to trade these names, you're probably better off waiting for the blood to at least fizzle out a bit, but don't ignore these names because they've been tough. That's what blood is. That's what, makes blood so difficult, but the reward is so freaking big. Because what happens is everybody's out. They're shorting the living daylights out of this thing. It goes down, especially in this market. The selling is relentless. Oh, by the way, see that? I hate the stock. Okay, probably a reason to buy it. I did buy a little of it. They are buying Caesars like they have tomorrow's newspaper. Okay, now we already know that an activist, I forget who it was, somebody took a huge position in it and is pushing the company to sell. Remember, it came out last week. And the stock doesn't even care. And that's what I'm telling you about how mechanical the selling is. These casinos, when there's tariff news, the machines, the algos just tattoo the bids. It's not even funny, And this thing basically has gotten lit up here, and somebody's out there buying the blood and thinking that, they're going to get the company to sell and they're going to get rewarded. All right, and we've seen a lot of buying, especially in this gambling casino place, for a while, right? They're buying these things into blood. A win into next year, some big time size. March. What the hell was that? Oh, March, huge March call spreads. This is blood. It continues to spill. And the SGMS, we all know, come on, look at this. So anyway, I wanted to make those Caesars and MGM as well saw buying come in. So whoever last week was buying Caesars was buying some MGM with it. This is another tough stock. MGM's tough. It's really a tough stock, MGM. There's a lot of hands in it, There are a lot of hands in MGM. Even when she's running, it's not clean. So look at this. Chop City, up and down, up and down. It's a tough stock. But again, if the Caesars, it looks like to me they're playing, I say tomorrow's newspaper like for news. You know what I mean? They're betting on the name. So you have to be willing to do that to make a play on the Caesars. What was that other name? They did that in another name. SVU. Yeah. That was it. SVU. I don't know if you guys remember this. They were buying down here. And the same thing, awful stock. Awful. And they just kept buying and buying and buying. Then there was some chatter. The stock started actually moving higher. Shakeout before buyout news. So that's like Caesars. It reminds me of it because they're both tough stocks and they both similar type action into selling. Yeah, Pandora, definitely an uptick ever since the what are they, 13DF filings, whatever they're called, came out, and you had a couple big guys, Soros and somebody else, take stakes. We've been seeing a nice uptick in activity in this Pandora. And it's got some momentum too, as you can see here. Look at this thing. So it's got some juice. She's a slower mover though, because it's a $9 stock. ABB interests me. ABB, what's that, MJ? That I remember that name. Didn't that catch like chatter sweeps or something like that? ABB. I remember this ABB. They announced they were selling. Oh yeah. They're selling off a business or a division, something like that. Yep. So you see, we got a little bit of everything. We got more than enough blood buying out there. Okay, you got more than enough. So it's a preference thing now. What names you like, what stories you like, what flow you like, that sort of thing. And now we're starting to see the tradable action come in. And that's what we get at ABB Robotics. Interesting. That's the stuff we like to play because we can look for a reaction right away. You understand? That's why. Where, Caesars, this thing might bore you to death for another month. Yandanks, yeah, interesting to me. I think, Paul, Yandanks, once you get a little lift off that whole Europe overseas debacle, like anything with overseas exposure, what I mentioned, the mechanical sellers constantly. You get any lift, any squeeze there, I think this thing explodes, Yandanks. Explodes. It's a matter of when. It's a matter of when. But this is a Russian play. They got a huge deal with Uber, I remember. Uber, whatever the hell you guys call it. But there's been a legitimate buying in this thing. It can't get out of its own way. But this is just like everything else. This is just like every other name that has overseas exposure. They all look like this. All of them. And you know what's funny? Sony, I thought when I was looking at the Sony flow come in, the sweepers, that's what I thought automatically. I was like, this is going to be a tough trade, short term. They're playing shorter term strikes, right? Sony is basically an ADR. How is this thing at new highs like this? Go figure. Go figure. And by the way, I saw something with Sony this week too. That could be why they've been loading up. Hold on. Oops. Up here somewhere. Oh, here I am. I saw something else. Sony. Nintendo, Sony, something like that. You guys aware of anything? If I find it, I'll post it on my Twitter. Might have been games or something. It might have been games. Yeah, that's Gordon. You're talking about like those are real Russian plays. This Yandanks is a growth name. This thing caught decent amount of flow last year too and had a big move. Look, big move. So when she gets going, she can move. This thing, it wouldn't surprise me in a couple months down the line we're talking about Yandanks at new highs. I wouldn't be surprised. Not one bit. Not one bit. But right now, just like the Chinese internet names and all that stuff, it's tough. That's another point I wanted to make before we wrap things up here. Keep an eye on that, the Asia-related stuff. meaning, the EEMs. You could throw the casinos in there, the Chinese internet stocks. The day we see them come back into a headline and sweep weakness, I think is the day these things at the least get a legitimate squeeze going. Okay, we see flow come into the lows, right? We've seen them do that. Like they came in here, they get a rally, right? I think here they were a little early. They came here, they get the rally. They came in here recently, right? They got a little bump. And then we get the Trump tariff headline on Friday. I think the day that we see sweepers come into one of these negative headlines after a little rally is the day these things get a legitimate squeeze going. Like you could easily here draw with my pens a trend line, a downtrend line here. You don't have to be any technician. You know what I mean? Pretty visible here. What the hell happened? Right? So what I mean is it's almost like clockwork. Every time they get a rally, right near the top of the trend, you get a negative trade war headline. And we see sweepers into that. That's when I think they could finally get a decent squeeze. Even to back into this range here would be a nice move. Oh, you know what I mean? So something to keep an eye on there. Something to keep an eye on. We saw a little buying in like K-Web. Look at that thing. Battered and bruised. Right? That was another thing, MJ, not to rub salt in your wounds. Another thing that we saw this week that we had a little bit of movement on. We saw some of the Chinese names. You know what name, MJ? Your little girl, IQ. A lot of us traded. IQ. So what happened was right here, you had sweepers. You know what they do. They sweep throughout the day in IQ. Then you got a nice move, a follow through, and then Friday, the headline. But, look, it's same thing with IQ. It just had a bigger move before all this started. IQ is in that basket of names. This thing's not going anywhere until they all are ready to go somewhere. And again, would it shock me? IQ is at new highs at the end of the year? Not one bit. Not one bit. Oh, MJ, you look at what's going on right now in the next 5 minutes, and that's all you care about. This is normal. You understand? When you see, and we were talking about it when it was going on, okay? You guys know. When you see this type of move, something like this is coming. Okay? May come a little bit later on, but something like this will show up. There's no doubt about it. When you get a parabolic move like that. AMD, it's going to happen. Nah, MJ's got it. All that, it means nothing, MJ. IQ, every time there's a tariff headline, China headline, IQ is getting thrown into that basket and they're selling it off every time. It's got nothing to do with fundamentals. It's got nothing to do with anything. Yeah, Baba, is the biggest one. Baba is the biggest one. Right? No matter what. But, you don't think players thought Baba, there was some value here off a pull like this? It doesn't matter right now. You understand? Nobody wants to get in the middle of these robots right now. And you can't blame them unless you're buying and building a position with a decent amount of time. It's not worth it. Okay? Because eventually, when that stops, and it will, it's not going to go on forever. When that ends, there's going to be huge opportunities, just like the retail space. right? Just like Macy's, they were selling every single day, every day, going out of business. Amazon's putting everybody out of business. You know, it was so tough, and then finally gets, the selling stops, the selling dries up, and Amazon's not putting them out of business anymore. Costco, and you're talking about Costco now, okay? Macy's had headaches before any of that. Macy's had headaches. Costco, same thing, couldn't get out of its own way. And now this thing hardly goes down. Costco got hit downgrade. Buy it. When was that? Friday? Friday, right? It's probably a screaming buy. How about Ulta? I own this in my daughter's account. Look at this thing. I own Ulta in my daughter's account, again, because my wife, I just got to buy the stocks my wife bangs me out. I'd be a multi-billionaire. No? But, yeah, the Ulta, same thing. Amazon was getting into beauty supplies, and it felt like every day there was another Amazon retail headline, and it didn't matter. They knocked the hell out of every retail stock, every single one, no matter what the fundamentals, no matter what the hell else was going on. But then when the dust settles and it's over, it stops, then you get, the quality, the cream rise to the top. Yeah, Lulu, same thing. Lulu was written off, out of business. Lulu's a lock to go out of business. Lulu was a lock to go out of business. The yoga stuff is a fad. Does that look like a fad to you? Look at this. So, yep. The whole list, Paul, that's the point we're trying to make, right? It doesn't matter. It's all of them. It's all of them. So that's what's ridiculous about it. And I'm noticing it more now than ever in my career. It couldn't be that Amazon was going to put the whole retail industry out of business. Couldn't be that all of them were that shitty. But whether it's the ETF, the ETFs being so big now, they're lumped into a basket, and when they sell the whole basket, whoop, you got no shot. So, yeah, exactly, Gordon. And I got to remind myself. So you're thanking me, because it's easy to overlook it. Because myself, I got to remind myself, because it's so easy, especially when, you try and trade a SeaWorld a couple times, and you day trade, it fails, you take it for a swing, you lose money, automatically you want nothing to do with it ever again. But I'm telling you, that's a bad attitude to have. It's a bad attitude, because some of the biggest winners come out of potentially a name that you lost money with. Just because you lost money with it doesn't make it good or bad. You're gonna have losers no matter what. You can't let that determine whether you're gonna play a name. Oh, I made money with that name, so you know what I mean. You always gotta keep eyes on especially the action that's coming in. The flow that's coming in. So my point being, when you see flow into these bloody names, even though it's tough right now, put them on your screen and take a look at them from time to time. You may be like, oh shit, you know what? These cruise lines, they look like they found the bottom here. And you come into work the next day and RCL catches a nice looking missile, or some consolidation, and nobody's looking. And you know what the other good thing is, Gordon? And you know me, I hate being in stocks that everybody's talking about the action. I hate it. When everybody's talking about the action, when it's on CNBC, it's always such a tough trip. And what happens with these names, when they become difficult, people, even that are looking at flow, won't even talk about it. Like RCL will catch flow, but RCL been such a tough trade, they won't even mention it on Twitter to their followers and stuff like that. And then the Nigerians won't even talk about it. because it's been a loser in the past. But I like that. You know, I like action that the riffraff aren't a part of. All right, guys. Always a pleasure. Again, thanks for coming on, especially you Twitter guys out there and all. Enjoy the weekend. I got a feeling next week should be fun. I really do. I think the flow woke up. I think we're in an okay shape sentiment. And like I said, I think the spec action finally has awakened or whatever, has woken up. So we should see an uptick there. All right. Again, if anybody missed the beginning, wallstreetjesus.com. You have any questions, you'll find some info there. Otherwise, have a great weekend, everybody. I'll talk to you guys next week.